I have no idea how I write a lot of this stuff. It just comes out like really naturally.
Hello and welcome to Where the Living Room Used to Be, a podcast about Rhode Island's music scene. Hey everyone, it's James. On this episode, Allysen Callery and I talk about her path to songwriting through poetry, as well as how she connected with a boutique record label in Germany and the anticipation before a new album comes out. Enjoy the episode, and as always, please subscribe and follow along on Facebook and Instagram at LivingRoomUTV.
So I grew up, we started off on the east side of Providence on Waterman Ave. I had very young parents, and in fact it was my father and a stepmother. And but we had tons of vinyl records, which were Steel Eye Span, Incredible String Band, Pentangle, and Flying Burrito Brothers and stuff like that. Some really cool records. And then we had some very middle of the road records like Linda Ronstadt and Jackson Browne. Lots of Joni Mitchell, everything Joni Mitchell up until Hissing of Summer Lawns. That was the very last record, and then it dropped off.
Yeah.
And then we moved to I don't even know what part of Providence this was, but it was in between Manton Avenue and Chalkstone. Like it was in there, not really the west side, but beyond Oneyville.
Okay.
So it was pretty rough. It was kind of my stepmother's folks lived around the corner from our house, so that was part of the reason why we moved there. Mm-hmm. But I was the only kid, walking to school with a violin,
Okay. Was violin the first instrument that you played?
It was. I really wanted to play cello, but my parents said it was too expensive, so they said, here's a violin.
Okay.
My friend played violin, and they're like, this will be good. It's like a cello, so. Yeah. But I never really wanted, it was Yipsori, and I did Suzuki method, so I couldn't, read really the notes, you just do everything by ear.
Yeah.
But, and then I played with the Yipsori, which was the Young People's Symphony of Rhode Island.
Okay. And how old are you when you started to learn violin?
I think I was 7 or 8, and then I played violin up until I was 13.
Okay.
So, and then right around then, my dad passed away, and I was singing at that point with the chorus at school, and I always sang, at church and in the car and everything. So, but I wanted to carry on what my dad had done, so I wanted to learn his instrument, and I still have it right over there.
The guitar over there?
Yeah, the guitar over there is my dad's. And nice. My husband just had it fixed for me for Christmas. It was unplayable for the past 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I'm so psyched to have it.
What, do you know what kind of guitar it is?
Yeah, it's a Martin classical nylon string guitar.
Yeah.
Just a little parlor guitar.
Yeah. So what was he listening to that kind of carried on? Were there particular musicians, or was it classical guitar?
We definitely listened to a lot of classical, and in fact, he never sang. When he played guitar, it was all instrumentals, but he would play Blackbird by the Beatles.
Yeah, yeah.
And he would make up his own arrangements and do other stuff, riffs on that. He did write one song, and it was for me, and it was called The Electric Eel.
Yeah.
When I was really little. But that's the only song I remember him ever writing, or the only song that had words that he would sing.
Okay.
But for the most part, it was all, But he would bring his guitar to parties and stuff and play. Yeah, he was great. I kicked myself because I had, he would record himself on little cassettes. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I taped over them on the radio in 8th grade, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
So, it kills me. I wish I had it.
So how did you learn to play guitar then? Did you teach yourself from what you learned from violin in a sense, or did you start taking lessons?
I had a couple of teachers at school. I went to school one. After my sophomore year in public school, it was like awful. So I ended up at school one, which was wonderful. And they had someone in the school found out that I had a guitar somehow.
Okay.
And she wanted me to play backup for her to sing "Will the Circle Be Unbroken" at her graduation.
Yeah.
So she's like, you can play, you have a guitar, play this song.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't play guitar. She's like, it's 3 chords, just learn them. And so I did. Like some friend told me how, and I played it, and it was crazy fun. And I decided from then on I wanted to be a musician and play guitar.
Mm-hmm.
But,
so that was like your first.
Yeah, that was my first performance. Like I had the guitar kicking around, and I was like, all right, this will do. This is it.
That's cool.
And then it's funny because Dan Lilly, who you might have, he's like Dan Lilly in Love Train. Dan Lilly, that's in Forever Young, the Neil Young tribute band.
Yep.
He was teaching guitar at school one, and he taught me some of my first chords.
Oh, wow.
And he was into Neil Young back then, and he would always have us like play Neil Young songs and stuff like that, which I did like Neil Young.
Mm-hmm.
But some of my first songs were Neil Young because of Dan Lilly.
It's because he was such a big fan.
Because he was such a big fan, like he had, he would just draw out the idiot chords. To this day, I can't write or read music, but like idiot chords I can do. Mm-hmm. And when I'm writing my songs now, I have to, for the most part, if I'm in a different tuning or something like that, I have to videotape myself where my hands are, or else I'll forget what I did.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can't, because I can't notate it.
Yeah.
Or I'll do like some weird notation.
If it works for you.
Yeah.
I've been playing music for 25 years and I have no idea what I'm doing either. So from that age, when did you, did you continue to play songs, or when did you start writing?
So I wrote in high school, but I stunk and I knew it. And like my friends were very, very supportive of me, and I played a lot of like Joni Mitchell, and I played Neil Young, of course. I did a cover of an Eagles song, "Already Gone," and but mostly Joni Mitchell, and because I was aware of what was a good song, and I was aware that what I was writing was not good. Like I had enough self-awareness at that time to be like, all right. I was definitely a late bloomer. I didn't start writing poetry that was any good until like my mid to late 20s.
Okay.
And so I started off doing poetry. So I was doing poetry readings and slam. Poetry was really big. It was like 1996.
Okay. Where were you doing that?
So I was doing that. There was the spoken word poetry was meeting at Books on the Square in Wayland Square.
Yeah.
And they gave me my first feature. And so usually could get up and you could read 3 poems. But if you're a feature artist, you could read for half an hour. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get my guitar and I'm going to put some of this poetry to music. And I hadn't, at that point, been playing guitar for over 10 years. My guitar was under the bed. And I was like around 30. And I put some of my songs my poetry to music, and I don't think I do any of them anymore, but those 3 songs that was it. Like everybody was like, wow,
Yeah, okay.
And it really fired me up to do it again, like to really I always considered myself a guitar player, but at the time, and this was the 90s, there was no open mics. Like there was nothing around that you could just go and like play a couple songs and it wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, without like actually booking a
booking a show, which that took me a long time to figure out. Like, I was playing open mics, and like every once in a while I would get a concert like offered to me, but I didn't know at the time that you have to actually write to venues or like call a venue up.
Yeah.
And ask to play. I thought that they had to contact you. So I was very passive. Like,
Yeah. What was the first show you did at a venue?
It was AS220, and I can't remember the series. It was, but a lot of my poetry friends were in the audience.
Okay.
And they didn't know that I played guitar, and so I had like this awesome experience of like, yeah, and I play guitar.
Uh-huh.
And so that was pretty cool. It's like the cool kids of AS220, which I was not. I was not in that group.
Yeah, like the artists that like live and work there.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah. Like I was like always felt like they considered me an outsider, an interloper, and I was. I was probably like the only one that was married. I had a kid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I was a 27-year-old mom.
Yeah.
Where they were like 25-year-old, probably, or 24-year-old, like cool kids hanging out.
Okay. Did you start playing more shows around that same time, or was there another gap between?
It took pretty much, yeah, there was definitely a gap. I was playing at the Narrows. They had an open mic.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Narrows had an open mic. Cafe Arpeggio in Fall River. There was one in Fall River and there was one in New Bedford.
Yeah.
So I went to the Fall River Cafe Arpeggio. And then, it was really intermittent. There was an open mic at the Custom House, which was like severely loud and like famous for like, you would leave there with a soul sucking chest wound, from people just absolutely not giving a shit. I used to play at a place called Cove Coffee House.
Yeah. Where was that?
That was over by like the Call, kind of. But it was a really beautiful room. So I loved going there. And that was kind of my first foray. I would, leave my baby at home and go into the city and play music once a week. That was like, and I was completely cloistered. I didn't have a job. I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't really have friends. And, I was married to a guy like 10 years older than me. His friends were all 10 years older. So I was really like outside, of society in every way. And that's what made me crazy enough to start writing poetry again. And like, I had enough time on my hands to learn my instrument.
And so you're living out here in Bristol?
I was in Bristol, yeah,
Okay.
but in a different part of Bristol. And like this big, beautiful house that like I could never keep clean. It was just like terrible.
Yeah.
But I had this wonderful baby. Like I had stuff that I wanted, but I definitely was very aware of being, I was very alone.
Okay. Did that inspire you?
Yeah, absolutely. It inspired me to like behave really badly. It inspired me to like do stuff that forced me to write poetry or go crazy. And it inspired me to, it was like I felt very tragic. I was like the tragic heroine of my own Ingmar Bergman film.
Okay.
To me,
yeah.
I would journal and stuff like that. I would just consider myself tortured. It's so funny, like to even think that now, like that was it, and I had just chosen this life, and I was in it, and I didn't imagine it changing at all.
Okay.
But it did, thank God.
Yeah.
I don't think I could. I couldn't have kept it going. Put it that way. But So, and that's when things changed for me. Is when I left that marriage, and my everything, like my world, just brightened. I felt like 10 years younger. I bought this house. I got a job. I paid my own bills. Like I was for the first time ever in my life. And I was writing constantly music. I met Miles through a friend of mine who had seen me play at a Ryza show.
That's Miles Bear.
Yeah, Miles Bear. His friend Heather Rose and said, I got a friend that I think would really like your music, and I think you'd like him, and you need to record, you need to have these songs out there. And I was like, woo. So I met up with him, and we recorded Hopi, because at that time I was so filled with hope.
Yeah.
And Hopi was actually the sister of a kid I went to school with at School One, he would tell all these like hair-raising tales of like horrific family abuse, and featuring himself and his sister Hopi. And it took me until that time of Hope to realize they called this girl, her name was Hope, spelled Hope, not like the Indian.
Okay.
And they called her Hopi. And despite all the shit that was going on in their day-to-day life. And I don't know, it resonated with me, and I named my record that.
Yeah, okay. And that was the first record that you...
That was the first real record. There was like a live recording at Cafe Arpeggio like in 2004. And it's so funny because I was sitting on like mountains of material. So I think there's like 16 tracks on that record.
Oh, okay.
And if anybody has a copy of Cafe Arpeggio, let me know, because I don't. And there's like also, or you can put it on Discogs because people are looking.
Oh, cool. So you connected with Miles, and can you talk about recording that record?
Yeah, absolutely. So we met up, and he was just really sweet and really nice. And first place we recorded was in the glass studio where he works.
And where was that?
It was in Rehoboth.
Okay.
So it was nighttime, and so you can hear on the record peepers in the background. Yeah. So peepers, if you don't know, are little tree frogs, and they make this adorable sound at night. And I realized at that point I really liked that sound, that natural.
Yeah, just the rawness.
I like
keeping that stuff in there than overproducing.
Yeah, I'd rather have some crickets than like birds on there, but I do like production. Don't get me wrong. There's times when both Miles and my friend Bob Kendall have done some beautiful production for me as well. But personally, as an aesthetic, I really do like that raw sound.
His hand then brought it down, just testing the wind's direction. Not seemed yet. Seemed he had tipped his hat. Feathercap lightly stepped over our line of horizon. No ladies lined up to say goodbye.
Did you begin playing more after the record came out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember I was at work when it was the Providence Phoenix. He said that the record was like the combined ghosts of Sandy Denny and Nick Drake.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd ever been critiqued, and I like open sobbed at work. Because he heard the British Isles influence that I didn't think. Like, I certainly did not play British Isles stuff out. Like, I thought, no one's going to get that. And,
Okay.
I didn't have the guts to do it. And, but somehow it came through, even in that record, which I don't consider, I wasn't thinking I'm trying to make a British Isles record.
Yeah.
But he heard my influences, even though it was veiled to me. And it made me feel really psyched. I was so happy, and it did motivate me to, I definitely don't write music to be commercially successful. I write what I want to write. I record the songs I have written out of pure love. It's nothing to do with like, I got to make a hit. Like, and I've been super lucky with the labels that I've connected with. They are not looking to, they're not looking to put me on the radio or sell out a stadium or anything like that. It's nice when a record gets bought, and I love that. But it definitely, to have a critic like what you're doing and have people respond to it is incredibly wonderful, and serves a purpose to motivate me too. I'm glad.
Yeah. Were there other musicians that you were connecting with at that time?
So my first friend that was a musician, it's my friend Kim Lamoth. At the time, when I first started playing out, I only had like an hour set, and she only had an hour set, but people wanted to play a show for 2 hours, so we would split a lot.
Yeah.
And this was like the early days in 2004. And then she ended up getting a band called the Kim Lamoth Trio.
Okay.
And I got a band with Miles and our mutual friend, Brendan Whipple. So Brendan played with me in the Land of Nod, and he played with Kim in the Kim Lamoth Trio.
Oh, okay.
So we like shared him, which was kind of great. And we played with Kath Bloom. And, I was so like outside of the scene. I had no idea who Kath Bloom was, or why she was so cool and why she mattered. And I think she came in late, didn't hear our sets. And we were kind of like, oh, who's this lady?
Yeah.
We didn't realize that. But let's see. AS220, I got to play with Marie Sue, she was one of those, like, she got up on stage, and the moment she opened her mouth, all of our jaws just hit the ground because it was so gorgeous.
Wow.
I played at the Blackstone, that's now the Met.
Okay, yeah.
And so this is me at the Blackstone. I used to stand up.
Yeah.
Bell bottoms were still cool, or bootlegs were cool. And I was playing a nylon string guitar. So I played nylon string guitar for a long time.
Okay.
Because of my dad's influence on me. We played the Knitting Factory in New York.
Yeah.
And we played Passim, and we played Stone Soup.
Cool.
And that was cool. I used to play with Kim and her boyfriend, and still her partner, Christopher Moon. We used to play at a place in New Bedford called the New Wave. The New Wave Cafe.
Yeah, I was going to say New Wave Cafe. Yeah.
You know that place?
Yeah.
So the New Wave was like basically like a bar for people like to come and hang out after they had worked a long time on a fishing boat or whatever. But they had music, which was so we would play for people who really didn't care too much, but we cared about each other. But they put on this amazing, like this big rock festival, and I played on the little stage. Like they would put folk acts in between the big rock bands.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine how well that went over.
Yeah.
And
well received, right?
Absolutely. But it was the first place, one of the first places I played, and they would pay you $50, and that was big money to me. Like to me, getting paid $50. That was like my tagline. I'll play anywhere for $50. So I would play Tommy Doyle's up in Boston, $50.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
To get a guarantee in those days was like amazing. Anything.
Well, still today, I'd
say
as well. I mean,
well, $50 was amazing.
Yeah.
$50. But yeah.
I've been paid in burritos, so.
We got paid in part of a brownie, and it wasn't even a whole brownie, and it wasn't even a pop brownie. It was just a brownie. And this kid was like, I can't pay you, but here you go. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because now I feel better.
Now, I actually have a thing in my car. It's like one of those sun catchers.
Yeah.
And it was another show I'd played with Kim, and we drove like 45 minutes outside of the city to play this place. And there weren't a ton of people there, but there were people there, and they charged. So we thought we would get paid. And at the end of the night, this very sweet woman that was part of the couple that ran it presented us with beautiful boxes and was like, here you go. And this is what you're getting. And inside was the sun catcher. And I'm like, Okay, so sometimes you're not going to get paid in cash money, but sometimes you're going to get paid in a wonderful experience. Like we played this gorgeous room. It was like one of my first listening rooms ever.
Yeah.
So it kind of reminded me to that it wasn't all about, it can't be all about money. There's so much more to it. There's some places, though, that are so crappy that you better get paid.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the night.
That is a wonderful story, but yeah, the ones that I'm thinking are the ones where like I would have rather just had the $15 or whatever, so because touring is expensive, so,
it is. That's true.
So after that first record, how long was it before you went back in the studio?
So Hopi came out in 2007, and then I pretty much, after it came out, I already had Hobgoblin's Hat already written. If anything, I had some of those songs. Most of those songs were written before Hopi, but because I was going through Hopi, going through my divorce, I really wanted to put out like the au courant stuff, like the stuff that was actually happening to me. And so I think. And Heather Rose was like, later on, she's like, that was a really accessible record. Hobgoblin's Hat, I'm not sure. But Hobgoblin's Hat was more the direction I wanted to go into because I like dark folk. And I like things to be a little gothic.
Okay.
And a little spooky, and that's what it is. It's definitely a spooky record. It was based on fairy tales that I had read or written for the record. And and the artwork was made by a fan that liked Hopi and created this beautiful cover for me.
Oh, I should be sleeping, but you keep on speaking to me, Mr. Moonlight. I can close my eyes, I can close my mind to you. 1 a.m. I stumble to bed, the ivy makes shadows that crawl across the ceiling. Your voice in my head, no left unsaid, still what I heard, not quite what I wanted.
Everybody came together for me when I had zero money and zero resources. Everybody came forth and for Hopi, Miles didn't charge me anything. The person who did my graphics didn't charge me anything. I had to come up with the money to pay. It was Oasis. I've used disc makers ever since, though. I highly recommend disc makers. But I had to come up with the money for Oasis. But that was it.
Okay.
And I was really, really lucky, that people believed in me and wanted to help and stuff. And because it got international criticism, and it was all good, and it got international airplay, and a lot of it was good thanks to good old MySpace.
Really?
Yeah, it was super easy to find people because all I had to do was look at, say Marissa's page, and she would have, Marissa Nadler would have all these publications or up there and stuff like that. It was so accessible.
So then you would just write to them
just
and
would
say, hey, I've got a record
hello,
too,
I have something. If you like her, you might like what I'm doing, or here I am and I'm doing this, and they would give you a listen and stuff like that. And she actually was incredibly supportive of me, and she's Miles's friend, so he had her listen to the records, but she told her fans to go listen to Hobgoblin's Hat, and I ended up with a lot of fans thanks to her. I'm incredibly grateful to her. She was generous.
That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. And she did a little interview for me for I don't know if it was We Listen For You, but she did a few interviews back, maybe 5 of them, but I was one of them, and she said nice things about my record, Winter Island.
Well, that's great. So some of this international press, is that what connected you with the labels that you worked with over there, or?
So what happened was I was listening to a radio station called Simple Folk Radio, and they would play these artists that I loved, and there was this one guy named Bird Engine, or called his project Bird Engine, and there was another one, The Great Park. So all these people were on the same label, which was Woodland Recordings. And so I went to which sounded perfect. I'm like a very woodsy person. And I live in a cottage. I make cottage folk. And so I wrote to him, and he's like, yeah, send me some demos. I want to hear preferably you sitting in a field, like press record.
Oh, okay.
And so Miles helped me, and actually, no, I think I just sent him some like phone stuff, or I don't know how I did it, but I sent him some demos, and he loved it. And then so I recorded Winter Island with Miles. And
is that still at the Glass shop?
No, we actually only recorded at the Glass studio one time. The rest of the time it just was in his kitchen.
Okay. Where was that? Like, where was he?
He was living in Fox Point at the time.
Okay.
And so we would drink a bottle. I would bring a bottle of red wine, and he had this little cup that had a Q on it. And we would record, and I would get like 3 songs deep, like enough, and then I couldn't record anymore. So we would have a few, sessions, which was, that was just how it went. But I liked hanging out with him, and so that was kind of it was easy.
What would stop you from recording?
Oh, just getting too drunk.
Okay. I got you. All right.
I would get too loaded. But I loved recording with Miles. Miles has this thing, if he really likes it, his head will just go forward. So if you're like, I definitely love feedback like that.
Yeah, okay.
So I would see him like really liking it, and that would make me play better.
Upon you, Winter Island, we wore boots upon the sand. Thanking heaven for a hunter's hat that tied beneath the chin.
Because Miles and I recorded Winter Island, then we recorded Summer Place, but they were both EPs. So you were asking about the label. So I first got on the Woodland Recordings label. He brought me over to Europe. Well, he said,
because where are they based out of?
He's based out of Germany. So he was living in Berlin at the time. Berlin, yeah. And so he's like, well, when are you coming over? I'm like, what? And he's like, you do know you're going to tour with this, right? And I was like, oh my God. Because, he's only making 100 copies. I didn't know. So I saved my pennies and we went.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. It was awesome.
Really?
We went through like maybe 4 or 5 stops in Germany, and then went and played 2 more in Switzerland.
Wow,
2 or 3 in Switzerland. And I saw incredible sights, and then we took the train everywhere, and I didn't know what I was doing, and he's like, hurry up, Callery. I'm like, you took a middle-aged woman on tour with you.
How were the shows over there? Were you received well? And
it was amazing. It's hard to come back to America after playing, especially in Germany. You're playing a packed room. You're playing to people who are dead silent, listening to you, like sometimes like a foot away from your face, and just incredibly respectful. And everybody buys music, and you never have to pay for a single drink because the venues feed you, and it was
take care of their artists.
Really take care of their artists. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. Like, especially because at that level I was playing, Middle East and things like that. I was playing what I thought were great big rooms and everything, but people are talking through your set. I play softly, and I can be background music, and I have been background music, but it's really nice to play an actual concert and have people, because I'm coming from a background of poetry, I really do want you to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
I could barely speak in real life, make a lot of sense, but I do have something succinct to say through music. And so that's where I want to put the best stuff out. So it was great. It was wonderful, and I got to do it another time with him, and then I recorded Mumblin' Stew at Dirt Floor recording, and it was a totally different experience than from Miles, because I did it totally sober, and we just worked, and a lot of it was one takes. Some of it wasn't, but a lot of it was, and he's incredibly easy and wonderful to work with. Highly recommend. And then at the end of it, then we would have some wine. That was it. But yeah, I could have probably done it all in one day if I'd really pushed myself. But as it was, we recorded most of it, and then the last 2 tracks I did the next day. So I recorded the whole thing in 2 days, basically.
Wow.
And then put it out a month later. It was insane. I had no idea about marketing. You're supposed to wait.
Promoted by getting a hype.
You're supposed to actually get hype. I've always put the stuff out because either I had a really great show, this special venue, and I was like, well, I should make this my CD release party, so I better get a CD out, for it. I do it ass backwards.
Yeah. You're writing records for the show you've got, rather.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been playing the songs, but I'm, I guess I should get around to recording it. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
And you've continued to work with those same labels?
Well, it's definitely, it's changed. So if my first label was Woodland Recordings, and then from Woodland, basically the guy that runs it is Stephen Birch. He also plays music under the name The Great Park.
Okay.
So he was playing a house concert, and I guess they were talking or whatever, or he had music. And so the first label, my first vinyl label, was Jellyfant. And they were like, so who's she? Allysen Callery. And he's like, oh, she's this American, blah, blah, blah. And they were interested in me and putting out my record. So I was motivated to make the Summer Place, and because my dream was to have Winter Island and Summer Place in one record. Okay. And that came true. That was my first record.
So it's like A-side, B-side of a record?
Yeah, and it's super cool. They had friends of theirs, the Kalbasas, who are amazing artists that live in Oberhausen with the Jellyfant gang. Yeah. They call themselves the Oberhausen gang.
Okay.
And they're all just artists and musicians, and they have the label, and so the Kalbasas made this beautiful, beautiful record cover for me. And when I was in Germany, they explained to me what it all meant. It had to each image pertained to some part of my record, but it was so late, and we were drinking a lot, and they were speaking to me in very broken English. Yeah. I have no idea what they said, except for a couple of things. But it was very, very cool. And then the next label, I did work with 75 or Less Records. That's here in Warren. Yeah. They helped me with Mumblin' Stew, because I put the vinyl out on Jellyfant, and then I put out a CD out through 75 or Less. Cool. And at the time, they were still doing physical product. Yeah. And Will Schaff made the artwork for that, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Nice, I love it.
Oh, my Carolina, hold on to me forever. Now the rambling rose, and I'll climb the highest fence to thrust my faith, my love, myself, my world. Bloom outside your window. No consequence to me if you're making me happy. No consequence to me if you're bringing me misery. Oh, my Carolina, my Carolina, oh my Carolina, see what you done, what you done to me.
So after I put out the record for Mumble and Sue, I started writing a new record. I met Bob Kendall.
Okay.
And he was very inspiring for me. And Woodland Recordings had asked me to put out something onto a compilation that they were putting out. So I re-recorded an old song at Bob's, and Bob records out of a shed in his backyard, and he calls it...
Where's that?
It's in Middletown.
Okay.
And he calls it The Shed. But I call it Magic Shed. I almost always get my song in one take there. There's just something about it. It's like, we're in a small room now. It's like a third of the size of this room.
Yeah.
And Bob's a big guy. Like, he takes up half of it. And you're just there. And we drink tequila. It's different than Miles drink. Yeah, it's just really awesome. It's just, he's really attentive and amazing to work with. Okay. Highly recommend working with Bob. And he's just an amazing musician, very, very funny guy. So, like, it's awesome. So we got to doing, like, some small things. Like, there was a couple of compilations. I did something for Slow Acoustic. I recorded a Will Oldham song.
Oh, cool.
And Bob loves to produce. So, and also Folk Radio UK had asked me to do, I had done a radio, like a podcast basically for them.
Yeah.
With Miles. And then, so years later, I did one with Bob for the new stuff.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I put a little production on it. I hope you don't mind. And I listened. I was like, ugh. It was so perfect and gorgeous. It was exactly the right, like, lightest touch, and I absolutely loved it. So when it was time to record a full-length record, I went to him for the song The Songbird Sings.
Yeah.
And he's one of those people that just has a very organic, he just gets what you want, you know, and I love what he did with that record.
It's not the ocean, it's the water that will drag you under. We're out of sugar, I'm not shopping anymore. Watching the rain fall at your door.
Halsey Records is my new label.
Nice.
And my new record is all tracked. It's called Ghost Folk. That was the name of the type of folk that my first label coined it, Ghost Folk.
Yeah. When are you expecting to have that out?
So Cosima says we have to wait until 2020 to put it out because she wants. It's not done. Miles still has it, and he's producing on it. But we have to. She's like, you have to have 6 months of promo.
Yeah.
And basically, for Christmas, everything after September, Germany just grinds to a halt for Christmas.
Yes.
Because it is everything.
And stuff. Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not going to come out until next year. I really cannot wait.
That's exciting.
I'm excited. You know, how records are is, you know, you write the thing, you perform the thing, record the thing, but then it takes so long to, get it finished.
Yeah.
So you're playing those songs. I've been playing the songs from this record for like at least 2 years at this point.
Yeah.
Like,
it's hard to keep it fresh for you particularly.
Yeah, it's a little like I always end up playing songs from an unreleased new record when I'm supposed to be
touring this record.
When I'm supposed to be touring with that record. So yeah, we'll see how good I do. I wrote a song a couple days ago, and I'm really tempted to contact Miles to see if he would have me back and like just put one more song on this record.
Yeah, that's cool. How would you say that would you say that your songwriting has evolved over time?
Well, when I first started playing, I was just in a regular tuning, and I was playing a nylon string, and I definitely, because I was coming from poetry, like straight off from poetry, I would take a lot of poems that were already written and just like put them to music.
Oh, okay.
And I've done that many times, and I still like to write that way. I do. But then,
like you're writing the lyrics first.
Yeah, you'll have the lyrics, and then you'll just build a song around them, and that works out great. I've also written songs like I'll be playing around a guitar, and I'll hear a chord progression, and it sounds nice, and I keep up, and then I have to immediately run and hit play, so I remember what I'm doing, and I'll kind of sing like this. Not quite words, but like sort of words come out of my mouth, and definitely the melody, and you're singing over the thing. And then I'll go back and listen to it and see if I can pick out. Sometimes actual like lines and stanzas will come out exactly like that. It is absolutely like like it's coming from somewhere. I have no idea. So, and then I'll just tune it up. I have no idea how I write a lot of this stuff. It just comes out like really naturally. Like it just sort of writes itself. I don't have too many songs that I've like had to go back and like tweak. Like you can tweak or whatever, but I'm not sitting down there like,
what's that next line?
Yeah, I pretty much write them all in like 5 minutes or like less. It's like boom, boom, boom.
I feel like you just made every other songwriter mad that's been listening to this.
No, it's like, I'm not saying they're any good.
These beautiful songs that I write that everyone seems to love. I just write them.
As I said, I really don't think I write them. I really think that it's like I'm a conduit for something else or something. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But, it's, I think maybe because I have a hard time talking, or maybe because I spend so much time by myself. I'm always, like, I have mornings off when I'm alone. I work in an office, but I'm alone in the office.
Okay.
And prior to that, I was always alone at home. My daughter would go to school, but I'd be, like, at home alone. And it's just become a kind of a way of life of being by myself all the time. And I've gotten weird, I guess. Like, weirder, possibly. But that does lend itself to writing. And like I'll ignore my guitar, and then I'll pick it up and I'll write a song. So it works like that for me sometimes too.
Okay.
Helps to, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah,
if you're away from it for a little bit. It also helps to switch. So my dad's guitar is the only nylon string I have now, and I haven't had a nylon string for a couple of years because I wasn't playing my other one because my husband had a steel string that had a plug-in. So a few years ago, you were asking what has changed with writing. When I started using more open tunings.
Yeah.
So that's when I started playing the steel string guitar. And definitely everything changed for the steel string, and I wrote a ton more because you just hear something different. Yeah. Every time you change your instrument, I think, like going back and forth from the steel string, which I'm used to, playing the nylon string, I'll write songs on the nylon string easily.
Yeah.
I
see that you have a couple of interesting shows coming up here in August. You've got the Divine Providence Music Festival.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
I'm super psyched about that. I really love Knickerbocker, and I love that area, and it's a fantastic bill. Like, there's so many good.
Yeah, it's like Ian from you know Neil from Deer Tick, right? And
I don't know him. I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I heard that, and then Death Vessel's there, and Dan Blakesley and Haunt the House is going to be there. I'm psyched. And I think Horseside Men, and then there's a poet, Jesse the Tree, I believe.
Yeah.
And some other people. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
I'm psyched.
And that's August 17th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, Saturday. And then there's the Providence Folk Festival, which I got involved with a couple of years ago. John Fusick had asked me to play it.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like, would you host? And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be a lot of fun.
What does hosting it
So hosting is, there's the main stage, and then there's the smaller stage, which is basically the singer-songwriter stage. They call it the song crafter stage.
Okay.
And but I said I would host it as long as I could co-host it with my friend Bob Kendall. Mm-hmm. So Bob said yes, and he was playing it as well, so that's why I asked him. And so he and I have co-hosted it for the past couple of years.
Cool.
And we're doing it again this year. This year I got to book the acts.
Oh, nice. Who do you have with you this year?
So I have some incredible people that I really love. That I met this girl, Katie, because we played a show at the Grange, which unfortunately no longer has music. I wish they did because it was so much fun. But she goes by the name Swimming Bell. And she had introduced me to this other guy named Andrew Vick. And so he's playing. So Swimming Bell, Andrew Vick. I had asked... So the first person that I asked was John Ferrone.
Oh, yeah.
And he's lovely. He's just a wonderful person. Mm-hmm. And I've watched him really blossom as a songwriter in the past few years. Yeah. He does a couple of songs that will just make me, every time, just really move me. Mm-hmm. So he said yes, very excited. I'm having this guy named Rick Allendorf had contacted me, so I had liked what I had heard. I'd heard some fingerstyle stuff that he did. He's more on the, there's like the spectrum of folk, from normal to weirdo folk, which I'm closer to the weirdo folk, and he's more of the normal folk. So I wanted to have something for everybody. So I have a few of the normal folk.
Yeah, the quote-unquote normal ones.
Yeah, so Lisa Bastoni, she's done some really great stuff. The Lara Herskovich. And then we have the more of the alt folk people. I shouldn't say weirdo folk. But, me, there's Bob. Bob Kendall's going to be playing, of course. And then, like I said, Swimming Bell, Andrew Vick. And then Cody from Harvey Garbage. Oh, okay. He wrote to me and was like, is there a room? And I'm like, yeah, for Seatbelt. So he's got a side project with his girlfriend, Amelia, called Seatbelt. And they're phenomenal. Yeah. And so basically anything that I've heard that guy do is just completely raw and gorgeous and honest and real music, cool. Unharnessed talent. So it's a pleasure. I really struggled because, of course, I wanted to book my daughter, and I'm like, well, this is my first year booking it. I'm not going to trot out that yet, but she's definitely playing next year. Yeah. And I basically have next year already booked, too, because there were so many people that came forth and wanted to play, and they were all so great. Mm-hmm. So I already have it. Mm-hmm. I have it booked up, so don't bug me.
Yeah. What's it like having your daughter now play?
It's amazing.
Yeah. And her name is?
Her name is Ava Callery, and she hasn't put out anything yet, although she will. There's a compilation coming out in September, late September, on Infinity Vine Records, and so she has a song on that. I have a song on that, and a bunch of our friends. So that'll be super cool. So, yeah, everyone's been pressuring her to record. She is amazing. She's always been a writer. She's my only child, and ever since she was 6 years old when she started writing, and they would have to do assignments for school, all the other kids, would do it on the one sheet, and she'd always have to ask the teacher for more paper.
Oh, okay.
So it comes to her naturally. So she does, and she writes for a living as well. She writes for Providence Monthly, and she's also working at the Columbus now as the house manager. and
Nice.
that's just like within the past couple weeks.
Oh,
And
cool.
and then she's playing a million shows. So she's the busiest, hardest working woman I know. She's definitely out there all the time.
Cool.
Hustling.
Yeah.
I'm starting to not hustle as much. I put it on my Facebook that I had retired from every hustling.
Yeah.
Every day I'm hustling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of made it a point this year to enjoy my summer, because I've had summers where I only got to the beach one time because I was so busy every single weekend. And you know how it is when you're performing at night, you can't go to the beach during the day because you're going to be so tired. You just want to lay around and have your sunburn. So, yeah, this year I was just like, I only want to do so many shows. So I'm doing like 3 or 4 shows a month instead of 8. And it's so much better.
Yeah.
And I'm liking that a lot. So.
What would you say is your greatest musical accomplishment?
I think that getting to go to Europe was like, I mean, I had a template in my brain when I saw what Marissa Nadler was doing. Like she inspired me so much because she was playing incredibly gorgeous, incredibly personal, and not hugely produced. Like, at least I'm talking about her first records.
Yeah.
And she was taking this really precious, beautiful music and going overseas, and that's all I wanted. I'm like, that's what I wanted. That was it. So basically, you could dig a hole for me, and I will lie in it, because I have done what I wanted to do. I got international touring, and I have had international airplay and international critical acclaim. That was, good stuff. And yeah, so that was it. So I really, really love it. I don't know. What else would I want to do at this point other than continue to put out these weird records and that hopefully people will like? And, I loved going to South by Southwest the 2 times when I went. It was a lot of fun. That was like, it was neat to go to South by Southwest and then go to Germany, and people knew about me there because I'd played South by Southwest.
Oh, okay.
So even though you're playing like, a strange little place, I got the wonderful opportunity to play right before Riley Walker.
Okay.
So Riley Walker had all these people waiting to hear him. And there I was. And so I got some really nice press because of that. It was just like a trick of fate, so it was nice. But yeah, I do enjoy being part of the Providence Folk Festival. I'm the president of the Providence Folk Festival, but it's more like, hail to the chief, it's the job nobody wants. So it's kind of like that, and I don't know if it'll always be. And I do really like, I love being able to take people that, I would like being able to put Harvey Garbage or Seatbelt like in front of people that maybe would never go to see one of the DIY shows or whatever that they put on, and hear some real amazing lyrics and stuff like that. I like mixing up. The mix I have, I think, is cool for the Songcrafter stage.
And that is at Roger Williams.
No.
It's not there?
No. So this is huge. It's at Rose Larissa Park in East Providence.
Oh, okay.
We got a new home, and it's bigger, and it has water access as well. So
nice.
You're going to be right on the water. It's a gorgeous park.
Yeah.
And we're right across the street from the Lewis Carousel.
Yeah.
So you can go over there. And so it'll be very, very neat.
Yeah. And the date is August
25th.
Yep.
Yeah.
What time does it start?
Starts at noon. Bring a lawn chair. Bring your picnic.
Yeah.
Get there early because that's when I play.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Allysen.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Sweet as bees pollen on gentle breezing, more bitter than the taste of wormwood. In love with the dark, love with death. Kisses your mouth where my fingers might have been in another place, in another time. Pretty boy would have made you mine in another place, in another time. Love for